Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. We've had authors on this program before, and it's been all great. Today, something a little bit different. He is a children's author, but not just with a book. He's also created a PC game for computers and also for kids, a CD and songs. And we're going to learn about his journey into Jack Sprout in Beaver Creek Meadow. That's the name of the book. And his name is Jack Wayne Shoop. He's our professional of the year, and he's back with us. Welcome back, Jack. How you doing?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for having me again. I had some good news last Friday from Penguin Publishing. You've heard of them, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they know about me, and they called and said that they heard the podcast and that they wanted me to relook at it again and see if there's something they could do. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
This is not just something you came up with last week or last month. Jack Sprout is something that goes back, at least the thought, and no pun intended, but maybe a pun intended, the seed was planted decades ago. If I remember correctly, like 40 years ago, maybe more, 50 years ago and change.
Yeah, I was, this is my last couple of years in college back in the late 60s, early 70s.
And we're going to get into chapter 1 of the book and a better look at that. But before we even get there, I just want to reset for everybody. This began as a thought that you had. What was your ultimate inspiration to create a children's book?
Well, I really didn't. Once people gave me the name Jack Sprout, there's like a 5-year journey I was on, and it led me to becoming Jack Sprout. That's the way I look at it, because it started when I was in college and Vietnam War, and a lot of praise and heavy thinking and about the world and all that. And I wanted to do something big that the whole world could benefit from, and I told myself that out loud. So that's kind of an inspiration there. But once I basically drove all through the country, living on the road, and I wound up in Oregon. I wound up selling sprouts for this guy, and they called me Jack Sprout. So now I'm Jack Sprout, and everybody's got imagination, a little creativity, and I thought, well, I'll give this guy a life. He's got to have a life. And since I was a sprout farmer, I had greenhouses and so on, I kind of mimicked it after what I was doing. So it's kind of for kids, but it's not really a kid's book. He's not silly and hitting people over the head and stuff like that. But it's just a story of a young guy growing up.
Yeah, that's a great point, because when I heard that we were going to have a children's book author on, I expected, it's going to be lots of illustrations, a little bit of text, and call it a day. It's the opposite of that. There's deep lessons involved, life lessons involved, interaction with animals. Why don't we go right to it? Chapter 1, Meet Jack Sprout. Why don't we take it from there?
Okay. Well, when people sit down and write a book, sometimes they have trouble getting started, So I had really had trouble getting started. I didn't really start the book for about maybe 5-10 years, really. I had the rest of the chapters because I just did it as what he needs to do. He needs to build a house, and he needs to plant a farm, stuff he needs to do. But I didn't know where he came from. So one day I was saying, well, he's a sprout. Sprouts come from seeds. So I said, okay, that's what I'll do. So he started out, his baby picture, he started out as a gray striped sunflower seed. So his life, everything, like you said earlier, everything comes from a seed. And so he was planted in Farmer Smith's sunflower field with 1,000 other, sunflower seeds on one warm spring morning. And then they all died. Well, that's our life, We're inside of our hard shell. We're in a nice warm place, and this is our life. That's where we live. But the warm, moist soil soaked up their shell, and the shell started to open, and they all freaked out because they didn't want to come out of their shell, right? A lot of times people don't want to come out of their shells. So, but they figured they had to do something. They couldn't just sit there. They had to take action. So they sent out a root to see what was going on, and as their roots grew deeper into the rich, moist soil, their heads started growing up towards the surface. And then one day their head popped up above the ground, which, that was bound to happen, but the sun was so bright. But as nature would have it, they still had their shell hats on, so that protected them from the bright sun. And then, as time went by, the wind, the rain, and the sun made their hats brittle, and their hats fell off. But by this time, they had these big, strong sunflower ears, so they were protected. And as they began to grow, they grew another green shoot between their sprout ears. And they all grew except one. One sprout in there had a green shoot. And they all looked at him, and of course, they didn't make fun of it. They didn't tease it or anything, because that's, you don't do that. And matter of fact, they even protected it when the farmer would come around. They leaned over and protected it so the farmer wouldn't think that it was a weed and just pull it out and throw it away. So this one sprout was very sad. He didn't look like his friends, and what's wrong with me, and all that kind of thing. And then he said, well, maybe, they all said that, they talked to the roots. They all said that maybe it's just a slow grower and he'll catch on. But he never did. And then later in the summer, they got yellow, beautiful yellow petals and heads full of seeds. And this one sprout never did. And so now he's really mad. He's really sad. What's wrong with me? Maybe I am a weed, So Farmer Smith came by one day and he says, hey, what's wrong with me? How come I don't have the big yellow petals like my friends? And the farmer goes, there's nothing wrong with you. You look great. You're not going to be a farmer. You're going to be the new farmer for Beaver Creek Meadow. So, that relayed all his fears. Now he's not mad or sad anymore. Now he knows why he looks different. And he said, well, that's great. I'm great. I want to be a farmer, but I don't know anything about farming. He said, Farmer Smith said, well, that's okay because you've come from the earth, so you'll know what plants need to grow. So don't worry about it. Just remember what you learned growing up in my sunflower field. And since you've come from the earth, you'll be a great farmer. But you got to get out of here on the night of the harvest moon. It's the first full moon of the fall, because I'm harvesting the next day. Your friends will be okay because they're going to make more seeds, but we need you to be a farmer, so you've got to get out of here. So as he walked away, he goes, well, the sprout goes, will I have a name? No, the farmer goes, oh, yeah, you'll need a name. He goes, how about Jack? That's easy to remember. We'll just call you Jack. He goes, well, Jack what? He says, well, you're a sprout, aren't you? We'll just call you Jack Sprout. So that's what happened, and that's how he got the name. And then he told his friends about it. And they said, yeah, we know you were different. We knew something was going on. But anyway, now he's got to get away from he's got to break away from his roots, right? You always had to break away from your roots at some point. And he was having a hard time because, the roots were all deep, but he jumped, flapped his wings and there were arms and tried everything he could, but nothing was working, so he couldn't give up. So he thought, well, I'll try one more thing. And he leaned over and pulled each root one by one, breaking each one by itself. So instead of trying to pull them all at once, he broke one each at a time. So that worked, and he fell over, and he made it to the edge of the sunflower field, and he turned around and waved goodbye, and they all waved to him, and it was a really sad moment because, he's not going to see his friends again. But he's got a purpose in life now, so he's got to go. And that's what happened. So now he went from a seed to a farmer in the first chapter.
And there's a great line here toward the end of the first chapter. It says, whenever I need to learn more about farming, I just go back to Farmer Smith's sunflower field. And here's the line that sells it, back to my roots.
Yeah. Oh, you read it? Yeah, great. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Who wrote that? That sounds great.
I don't know. Some guy named Shoop, Jack Shoop.
Yeah. Back to my roots. So he had to break away from his roots, right, to get out of the field. But he's coming back to his roots when he needs to learn something.
Mm.
Yeah.
There are about 185 pages in the book and a number of different chapters. Do you have a chapter that's one of your favorites, or do you look at it as like your children, where it's like, I really don't have a favorite. I can't pinpoint a favorite.
Yeah, the last chapter is where Jack Stroud asks the canary to come live with him. It's not a love story or anything, but the rest of them are, I grew up in Iowa, and all my neighbors are farmers, and all my stories just sound like me talking to the farmers when I was growing up. I always liked hanging around older men, my parents, my parents' age or even older, because they got all these farm stories, And so, like, Fred Beaver makes today, a lot of them is working. They're all building, working, farming. So that's all kind of similar to me. But the last chapter is he goes and finds the yellow canary, who's been singing all throughout the book, but he never sees her because she's always hiding behind the leaves. Mm. But she sings at the mill on Sundays, and she's got a beautiful voice. So he comes and lives. He goes and finds her, which wasn't easy because she didn't let him find her. And anyway, he comes and asks her to come live with him. You want me to tell you the hook there?
Please do.
Well, anyway, she goes. Well, he chases her all over the place, but she don't let him find her. So one day she said she's on the limb in the trail in the East Woods, and he finds her, and he goes, "Oh my God, there you are! I've been looking all over for you." She goes, "Yeah, that's what I've heard. What do you want?" So he says, and he can't believe he said this. He goes, "Well, I want you to come live with me on my farm." And then he goes, "Wow, did I just say that?" And her beak turns pink, and she's all, everybody's embarrassed. Mm. She goes, "Well, yeah, that's what I heard you wanted, but why do you want me to come live with on your farm?" He goes, "Well, you're the most beautiful singer I've ever heard, and you can sing on my deck, and so I could listen to you in the fields, and you'd be there when I come home from a chore." She says, "Well, that's nice. So I'm a great singer, but I don't think that's a good reason to come live with you." And he goes, "Well, you're the most beautiful bird that there is, and I've got a cage, and the door will always be open, and I got all the white millet you'll ever want." He says, "Well, those are good reasons. So I'm pretty and I can sing, but I don't think those are good reasons to come live with you." He goes, "Well, to tell you the truth, after my chores are done, I go to my deck on my house, my porch, and it's kind of lonely, and I don't have anybody to talk to, and I really like talking to you. And that's really why I want you to come live with me, so I can talk to you." He goes, "Well, you know what? That makes more sense. That makes more sense to live with someone. So you come back here in a couple of days, and I'll let you know my answer." So that was kind of and you know what the answer is, right?
I hope it's the answer I'm thinking. Because this would be a sad book.
Yeah. No, she comes back in 2 days, and he meets her there, and she said, "I come up with the answer," and the answer is yes, I'll come live with you on your farm. And she flew up there and around the house and through the house and into her cage. And I was told by some women that you better leave that cage door open. Mm. So that was a big deal. A lot of people go, "Yeah, well, you're not going to shut the door, right?" I said, No, cage door will always be open. That really mattered to a lot of women. And so now she's got her own bird cage, and they live, on his farm. So that was kind of the last chapter.
So I want to look at the book as a whole. And is there something from the book that happened to you in real life, but maybe you worked it into the book and the characters? I'm going with that. Like the story you just told. Yeah, that could have been a true story, based on a relationship maybe you had. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, there was the part that there's a lot of it's true. It's just that I didn't know you had to talk to him.
Huh.
You know what I mean? I didn't grow up being told that talking to the opposite sex is the most important thing. Nobody told me that.
Gotcha.
So I didn't figure that out. So that was kind of the way that worked. But let's see.
Like other situations that maybe you might have encountered along the way that went into maybe one of the other chapters or a situation.
Well, yeah, I when I was 13, when I was a young boy, 13, I had a beagle dog, and beagles loved to hunt rabbits. Okay, so I would take, and I had a .22 rifle. I didn't want to shoot and kill no rabbit, but I had to take the dog hunting. So I took him hunting one day, and a rabbit got up, ran, and I don't know if you've heard of beagle, they go, arr, 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 chasing the rabbit. And I swear they went at maybe 100 yards. The circle was maybe 100 yards in diameter. Just kept running and running and running, and the rabbit was running in a circle, and my dog kept chasing him and barking him, and sure enough, the rabbit came back by me, right by my feet, right back into his hole, and where he started. And I shot the gun, but I didn't, I wasn't aiming nothing. And the dog looked at me like I was the biggest jerk in the whole world. He looked at me like, "What are you doing? I chased this rabbit all over the place, and you can't hit it." Mm-hmm. So I put that in the story. I put it in the rapid fire rabbit story, where he was stealing all the lettuce from my farm, but I couldn't see. There's another lesson I'll save for later, but Jack couldn't. He was just sitting on his porch looking out his field. He couldn't see who was stealing his lettuce. But anyway, the red-tailed McAllister, the red-tailed hawk, comes down and helps him, picks him up, takes him up in the sky, and then Jack can see who's stealing his rabbit. He looks him down, right? And so Red-tail told him the rabbits always run in a circle. So he dropped Jack Sprout down, and he went up and chased a rabbit, and the rabbit ran in a circle right past Jack Sprout, and then he caught him. So that was a true story.
Wow. Where do you live now?
I live in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky.
And would you say that your surroundings could be pretty much similar to a lot of the surroundings in the book?
Oh yeah. I lived in Hawaii for 30 years, and then I came back.
Well, I want to make sure I heard that right. Did you say Hawaii?
Yeah.
It's funny, when I called you today, I looked at the area code, and my brain said Hawaii, but I'm like, it can't be Hawaii.
Yeah, wow. I kept that area code. I think how you keep your number. Yeah, I still have a house there, and my son has a business in Honolulu, and it's for like 2 years now. I'll be in Honolulu helping him with his business. So I'm here.
What made you, just kind of curious, because, when I read the book, we're talking about very wooded area, which I would feel, would be Kentucky. Could be Hawaii too, but it's kind of different.
Yeah.
What brought you from Hawaii to Kentucky?
Well, I lived in Hawaii 30 years, and I had a situation where I was separated from a situation I was in, and I go, you know what? I really want to work on my book. I mean, I've got only so much more time to get this thing done. So then 2015, it was just convenient. All things were happening. I still have a house on the Big Island that we rent out. But I thought, well, I got to go to the mainland. I got to get this book off the ground. I can't do it in Hawaii. It's just too far from everybody. And I knew I was going to retire in Hawaii, but I wanted to see the world again before. Hawaii's beautiful, but you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So I went and lived in Springfield, Missouri for like 6 years, because that's where my sister was. So I rented a house from her, and then she left, so I was there by myself. So then I thought, well, if I don't quit working, in 2021, I said, if I don't quit working, I'll never quit working. So I quit working. And then I go, what now? Where am I going to go now? And I go, well, I'm always talking to myself. And I go, evidently, I like to live where it's beautiful, because I lived in Iowa, I lived in Colorado, I lived in Oregon, I lived in Hawaii. So I said, evidently, I love scenery, and I want to be around beautiful scenery. And I had driven through Kentucky in 1977 when I was living on the road, And this is my country. You know, pastures, horses, and green pastures and horses. That's where I'm at now. I'm in central Kentucky, where Lexington and Keeneland. Matter of fact, Keeneland racetrack is opening up this week. I work there 2 months a year, and it's some of the best horse breeding in the world. This is the heart of thoroughbred racing right here. So I love that environment. I'm not part of it. I'm on the fringe of it, but I love that whole scene. And you drive by, and you just pasture after pasture after, and you think, wow, how come they're not building homes on there? But they're not going to. They never will. The horse industry is huge in Kentucky.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. I love the scenery. I love scenery. I just love looking at beautiful country, and that's where I'm at right now. You know, the eastern part of the state, they have the Appalachians, so I'll be getting into that, and they have caves, which I don't like caves, but anyway, it's just green grass, buddy. I just love it, and that makes me feel really good.
Wow. I'm happy for you, and I'm actually intrigued. You know, going from Hawaii to Kentucky, and it sounds like you're just as, if not happier, in Kentucky.
Yeah, I am.
Wow.
It's going to be hard to leave because I get a lot, because you can imagine reading the book, I get a lot of enjoyment out of country, out of scenery, out of hills and pastures and things like that. Just, I'm a visual guy, I guess. I just like looking at it. And then, I take my hikes and stuff like that. But I lived in Colorado for 4 years, but that's pretty steep hiking out there. And there was no humidity there. So I couldn't handle Colorado. And Oregon, really pretty wet. And then Hawaii, Hawaii's got perfect weather. There's no getting around it.
Yeah. And as I get older, the one thing I realize, and we've always heard this cliche, hey, get back to nature, get back to nature. Now I get it. Yes. Now I get it. Now I understand what the quote unquote big deal is, where there's just something magical, the grounding aspect where you just feel connected. And when you're not in nature, for many of us, there's something missing, but we haven't quite put our finger on it. I want to take a second here and play a little piece of one of the songs from your CD.
Okay, thanks. He finds out what life's about.
You know what's interesting that you revealed last time we got together that that you were involved in music back in the day, and it's funny how life the journey takes us, where you wind up doing a children's book, a video game, and music, and you were doing that back in the day anyway. Yeah, I know. You never know. Yeah,
because I didn't grow up going. My dad was a rural mail carrier, and my mom worked at a hardware department store. And there was farming in our family, but there was no enterprise, entrepreneur or business or anything like that. And so I never saw any of that. All of our neighbors were farmers, so I don't know. I never really, but I had imagination, like everybody does. And I don't know where the music came from. I don't know. I really have a. Because I've got a song, I've got a song read through BMI. It's kind of a silly song. And I have another song about Valentine's Day that is going to be a killer if I can just find the right lady to do it. It'll be a classic. But I've written a lot of poems and stuff like that. But I'm not good at melody. I couldn't play a note on any instrument. And so coming up with melodies is tough for me. But words, no problem.
Wow. Fantastic. And it's great. You're still thinking. You're still steps ahead. Like, what else could I do? Check out the website, jacksprout.com. Great book. So many life lessons in there for all of us, not even kids. And I know that the character itself, you'd be open if anybody is interested in maybe purchasing the character from you or doing something with it. I know that we talked about that last time.
Yeah, I've taken my work is done here, as they say. I created it and I protected it and I gave it a direction and and all that. But I think if a company needs a logo for their outdoor products,
sure,
or if a traditional publisher wants I got a picture book ready to go, and this book's already done, and I got an adventure story after that. There could be a whole Jack Sprout world of products and books and songs and maybe, I don't know about movies, but you never know. Everything starts with a story, and I've got the story.
Yep. Wonderful talking with you again, jacksprout.com. And the other Jack, that's you. Thanks so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week, huh?
You got it. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.